Good evening, everyone, and welcome to September's episode of our Dóchas webinar and podcast series. My name is Christine, and I sit on the Mental Health and Wellbeing Working Group of the Irish Support Agency. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar on the lands of the Biddigal and Gadigal people. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of various lands on which you are all watching. We pay our respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Dóchas will be brought to you on the first Monday of each month, with each session exploring a different aspect of health and wellbeing. All our previous episodes can be found on the ISA YouTube and Spotify channel. If you have questions throughout our conversation, please feel free to pop them into the chat, but we'll also have some time for questions at the end. Tonight, we are exploring how we can avoid the feeling of overwhelmed by wellbeing. There's so much of it these days. The wellbeing movement has seen a huge surge in its following over the past 15 years. From healthy eating to exercise programs, self-care strategies, the amount of information that has been shared is vast. But how can we distinguish from fads and trends and research and science-backed approaches? We are joined tonight by Roisin Trainor, founder of Mind Yourself, mental health first aid training, Wellbeing Practitioner, and Alan Earls, project lead at Sydney Safe Space, as we dive into the changes that we've occurred in the health and mental health space, and we learn to separate fact from fiction. So welcome, guys. Welcome, Roisin and Alan. I could go on and on about introducing you. You both have, a lot behind you, both fellow Irish people. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Have a sentence or two to introduce yourselves.
I can jump in. I'm Roisin. I've been living in Sydney for the last 8 years. Been involved with ISA most of that time as a staff member and then committee member, and I volunteer in the health and wellbeing group and have been involved in different ways. Also know Alan through different organizations too, but yeah. My background is my undergraduate was in nutrition, and then my postgraduate done masters in health promotion and public health. So really my career has been really focused on this sort of stuff, and even I find it so overwhelming to decipher between fact and fiction because there's just so much information out there at the moment, as you said, Christine. So totally can relate to the overwhelm that people are feeling.
And Alan, what about yourself? Where are you from? What are you about?
Yeah, so I've been in Sydney about 18 years, but my background was originally finance, but it's only in the last 3 years I've got into the mental health space, predominantly from a lived experience background. I've spent the last 20 years in 12-step recovery rooms, and for the last 3 years I've been working in community mental health and not-for-profit. So on this subject, I suppose I am a small bit passionate about it because I come across people every day that are struggling with the amount of information that's coming at them and trying to decipher it, and I see the effects of it as well. So and I'm not immune to it as well either, to be honest. Sometimes it catches me off guard as well, and so yeah, glad to jump on tonight, and and I'm rushing. I didn't know she was only here 8 years almost since she came over, so through the Irish Support Agency. But yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, like you open your phone, it's on social media, you walk past something, it's everywhere. Like funny enough, I was on the bus home and I should be reading my Kindle, but we all go for a wee social media scroll, and there's people doing yoga, there's people curing anxiety, there's everything. So like mental health and wellness has been like a hot topic recently. What changes do you have noticed in the past few years? I'm happy for whoever wants to jump in there first.
Well, for me, I suppose, so I studied I graduated in 2012, and like in health promotion, which is really another word I think for this industry. It's maybe just more of a boring term. Wellness sounds so much more exciting than health promotion. And whenever I studied it back then, it was just not a hot topic. Like it wasn't exciting and Instagrammable, and people weren't really that interested when I was saying, oh, I'm doing health promotion. I was like, oh, telling people to stop smoking, is that it, or whatever it was. And even when I graduated, it wasn't like it was, you worked in, if you worked in health and well-being, you worked for a health service, you worked for a charity, you worked for someone who was involved in that. And then all of a sudden I started to sort of observe that, the influencers that I followed for maybe travel ideas and fashion and makeup were now sort of moving, that this was, another big trend that people were following, which was very, very exciting. I have to say, I was like, oh, people are interested in this. It's fantastic. I remember the ISA it's more than a couple of years ago now. It's probably like 6 or 7 years ago, we set up our health and well-being group, and we tried to run like wellness events, well-being events before this really kicked off. And honestly, there was like 5 people. We were trying to do well-being walk and talk sessions where we've got the community together, and it was just like, what's that? Like people just didn't get it. And now we're just seeing it everywhere. Like it is the new trend. It's what people are interested in. It's what people are spending their money in. They're blogging about, talking about, which is again really exciting. But I think then there is also the risks associated with that it has become commercialized. It's become something that people are seeing as well, it is a huge industry. The industry is worth trillions of dollars worldwide. And sometimes it can then lead to overwhelm, where people are missing the stuff that has been around for many, many years, the fundamentals of how to be healthy. People are missing that because they're being sold this shiny aspirational lifestyle that isn't always attainable. And getting the basics right is boring. Now you want the sort of quick fix shiny thing. So that's the other risk associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
what do you think?
Yeah, I suppose from what I see, and my biggest concern is the oversimplification of mental health, and sometimes complex mental health. And you get outlandish statements like, and I tongue in cheek, I'd say it like, will ice bath cure my childhood trauma and stuff like that, but there's people out there that genuinely probably believe that that can cure trauma. But yeah, I think that's the biggest concern. When it comes to mental health, it is complex. You need a team around you, and you need to be able to ride the ups and the downs. And unfortunately, you don't see the downsides on social media much. You only ever see the upside. So the comparison isn't a true reflection on how that person may be going on a day-to-day or week-to-week or hour-to-hour basis. So that would be my concerns around just how they simplify it. And then also, I think everything is great, but in moderation, and it can't be just in isolation as well. Just try that one thing. I've seen a lot recently of what people are talking about. You just go into your GP and he doesn't even listen to you, and he just throws medication at you, which may or may not be true, but it's a dangerous thing to throw on social media. Some people really, really need that relationship with a GP. They really need medication, and to simplify it and to cast it off as if, okay, you don't need that. There's a holistic way of dealing with your mental health, but sometimes it's not that simple. And I've seen people and how it's affected them. A couple of years ago, I was in the acute adolescent unit in Westmead Hospital, and 95% of the people that we saw were under 18, and they were young girls, and social media was one of the biggest stressors and factors in them self-harming. and last week I was speaking to the Towards Zero Suicide program manager from RPA, and he said that they've seen a 300% increase since COVID in young people presenting in hospital with self-harm and other issues, and that's you know, I don't think that they at that age they're able to actually decipher what's true and what's not true. You know, if somebody's got 300,000 followers, maybe they think that it's true, but it's not the case always, you know. So
no, 100%.
Yeah,
it's scary.
and then, you know, we ran a course. We ran a course not so long ago, and there was a couple of influencers on that course. You know, I managed to have a bit of a chat with them in the breakout time, and like some of the stories that they told me were, I felt really, really sorry for them. I had huge empathy for them. I had compassion, but the constant spotlight on trying to produce content, it was unbelievable. Like, and you know, I don't want to say where they met, but they met in a mental health facility, or something similar, and you know, it's that's where it ends up as well, and you know, I'd be worried about the influencers as well and how they're being supported as well.
Yeah. You're 100%, and I think you're right with saying that, like, we only show the highs, and I think that's what people sometimes get from the social media is the highs. It's like if we bake a cake or we go out for dinner, we always put the beautiful platter of food up on our social media, and next thing everyone thinks, oh, they're amazing, they get us food. Did we post our dinner that we had a half an hour ago? No, we didn't, because it didn't look appealing, and a lot of work went into it, and you're looking for the quick fixes and that. But yeah, there's a lot of hard work, and there's lots of ups and downs with that. Roisin, would you think anything, like, I suppose it being such a hot topic, a buzzword, like, what would you be concerned about when it's all up there?
I think what Alan said there really hit the nail on the head about this, like, really simplistic view that, like, people sharing their lived experience, and Alan is someone who shares his lived experience in a really safe and helpful, you know, productive way, with guidelines and structure and support and training. I think whenever people have gone through something and they have come out the other side, that it's a really nice quality that they want to then help other people who are going through something similar, and people really connect to that. You know, peer-based health interventions are incredibly effective in our line of work. You know, hearing it from someone who has gone through something similar, who they can relate to, and especially with influencers who are quite aspirational, then that's going to be really, really helpful. And there's been really successful campaigns where influencers have used their influence to make positive behavior change and educate people on scientific approaches to health. But my fear is that when people are doing it alone, without any sort of training, without an attachment to an organization that's protecting both parties, you know, the person themselves who's sharing their stories and the people who are hearing it, sometimes people can get a little bit lost in that, and their story, which is relevant to them, might not be exactly the same as everyone else's. Someone who's experienced, you know, mild to moderate anxiety, saying how they found this morning routine, this activity like an ice bath or whatever it might be, cured them of their anxiety. Yes, that might have been able to, but if you look at someone on the other side of that sort of continuum who is not able to, you know, work, can't get out of bed in the morning because their depression is so bad, they're not able to sleep, they're not really, you know, able to do a lot of things, to say that, oh, you know, an ice bath or, you know, this morning routine is going to help you with that, it's not going to be as effective. And for those kind of people, that is really important that they go to their doctor, and that might involve going to, you know, them for a long time, getting medication. They may require antidepressants, may require other medication, because their experience is not going to be exactly the same as the person they're seeing on Instagram. And I think it's really important that people understand that. And I think those kind of stories we're seeing on Instagram where people are saying, you know, don't go to your doctor, this is what you're going to get. That's where I'm really, really concerned in the dangers of that, because there's no accountability. You know, a doctor is really restricted on what information they give and what advice, and the health system is definitely flawed, and there is training required within the health system, absolutely. And we want to see that change and looking at lifestyle factors before going to medications. But whenever somebody is just going to the social media and just going there for information, and they have a clinical illness which requires medication to basically keep them alive, then that's what's really bleeding into that dangerous territory for individuals. It's also putting everything on the individual. It's like, if you're sick, it's because you're not self-caring, you're not getting up early enough, you're not watching the sunrise, you're not active enough, you're not getting the right shake, da, 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 da. And it's missing the point that, you know, people can be doing all the right things. You know, it's not on them. Like, this is an illness. We don't blame people for being, you know, diagnosed with cancer or diagnosed with another illness. But I feel like sometimes there is this sort of guilt now for people who do need to go and speak to their GP and get medication, that maybe it's like, am I a bit lazy? Am I not doing all the wellness things that seem to be working for everyone else? But the people, you know, taking their medications, you know, nobody's Instagramming going into their doctor or sitting in their psychologist's office, because that's not pretty, that's not Instagrammable. So people are sort of missing, you know, the other side, the other range of interventions, which are really cornerstone before people are able to get up in the morning and go and see the sunrise and do the ice baths, which, again, big fan of. I think they're amazing. They're really, really good. Not to criticize them. I think the social connection people can get from those, the healthy routine, is fantastic, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah. And I agree, yeah, totally. Like, it's them ice baths and sunrises and all that, they're all sold, but like, it's, again, maybe it's a routine that's working for someone, or maybe, yeah, they are taking they're getting up at 5 to have a good breakfast and having their medication, and then they go to the sunrise. You're not seeing every part of it. But yeah, and I suppose those sunrises, those ice baths and everything, they're put on social media. Why do you think everyone these days is just going to social media instead of seeking the health professionals? And like, I think we all are guilty of it now and then, even if we're looking up a recipe or anything like that. But a lot of people are seeking mental health and wellness on social media instead of the health professionals. Why do you think that is?
I'm happy to let you lead this one, and I'll jump in the end.
Yeah, I think I know it's very hard to say exactly. Like, I think, like what Roisin was saying, mental health, we need to understand individual differences. You know, just because something works for me, whether it's medically or whether it's holistically, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for the next person. You know, and if it doesn't work for me, if I don't get anything out of the ice baths, or if I don't get anything out of my medication, it's nearly like there's a shame on myself. So then, you know, people look elsewhere, you know, and there's an awful lot of stuff out there that is like far left field. Like, I've listened to a couple of stories in the last few months that involved, yeah, I wouldn't even want to say it in a webinar, you know, but it's and my worry is, and it's happened it's happened with other groups, like you know, there was I'll even name a group. There's Tomorrow Man is a group that goes into schools, and there was big uproar when they went down to Bateman's Bay there one time, and they, you know, they got all the boys to apologize for you know, men's behavior, and got them to paint their nails, and they had to step up to a line and apologize for being a male. And seemingly, like, what happened was they came in, they did all this, which some of this can be great work, but there's no follow-up afterwards. They just fly out of town, and then the school and the community is left to look after it. And I think sometimes when people are going to these retreats and they're going to all these great things, which can be great, but my worry is, what's the follow-up? Because you're bringing stuff up to the surface sometimes. You're having conversations that can really be activating. And then you go back to your normal life, and it's like, it's kind of like a snow globe that's been shook, and you don't know how long it's going to take before you can actually see the picture again. And I feel that that's where I worry about this stuff, that it's unregulated around that. And but social media can sell a great retreat. They can sell it with pictures, they can sell it with testimonials, but do they sell the aftermath as well? Sometimes we don't hear those stories when people have gone back. And I a few years ago, a friend of mine did ayahuasca, and he's never been the same since. Never been the same since. And it's that those kind of things. It's very unregulated at the moment in this country, so that's why I would always kind of seek out professional help. Even if you're going to do it, run it by your doctor or run it by your psychologist, or phone up one of the helplines or whatever, and just run it by somebody, because the person that's selling you that is not the person to be asking those questions of, because they have a beneficial outcome for you going there. So so I suppose that's kind of where what I would be saying is seek qualified help, even if you're going to do some of this holistic stuff, because some of it can be great. I've done stuff over the years as well, and it has been beneficial, but it's part of I don't go all in on one thing. It needs to be part of a bigger plan to stay in recovery and to stay well and just to keep moving.
Perfect. Roisin, have you any?
Yeah, I think I can definitely relate to why people might veer towards social media. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, like, I'm a big advocate of trusting professionals and, going to them, and as Alan said, in combination, do the other stuff, but run it past your health professional first. Things like an ice bath, that's really low risk. It's not probably going to cause harm to most people. So there's no harm in doing it. You are getting all the benefits. I know there's definitely some indications and research to show that it can be really helpful. But as you said, getting up, getting out of bed, maybe not drinking the night before because you have an ice bath in the morning, all the social benefits are going to be really, really impactful. But I think why people maybe have a little bit of mistrust in going to their health professionals is, and this isn't on individual doctors or anything, it's the whole system, I think, is flawed. But especially in Ireland, I know what it's like for my family trying to get in to see their doctor. They don't want to see them. It's telehealth, and you have to get past the receptionist, who might be your neighbour down the road. In my case, our next door neighbours, the health receptionist. You're not going to go into story to her about how depressed you are. It's all these barriers for people getting in, even to get to see their doctor. It's expensive. It's rushed. You have a few minutes in with the doctor. There's no time to build a rapport, and it's not like pretty. It's not aesthetic. It's and it's also, doctors are very highly regulated, so they're not going to give false promises. They're going to say, if you go to this psychologist, it's recommended that someone has 16 sessions of CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, to get the full benefits. That is not a quick fix. People want a quick fix, but then you have someone an influencer who's not regulated by what they say, and they can say massive statements like, ice baths have been shown to unlock trauma. Like, is that true? And who's going to hold them accountable to that if it's not? And it's like a quick fix. Okay, I need to do this. I'll do this morning routine. I'll buy this product, whatever it might be. And people are obviously going to go, well, I'm going to go and sit in my doctor that I can't relate to. He's, sticking to all these rules. He's telling me that if I do this, there's a 50% chance that I'll feel better in 10 weeks' time, versus someone that's like, oh, here's a product, and, it's going to do X, Y, Z, and no one's following up with them to see, does it actually happen? So what are you going to turn to? And, as someone that's been trained in health and health promotion, I was always told, like, my opinion doesn't matter. It's what does the research show? What are the guidelines? So I'm not going to be saying I think this is good or I like this. it's very much like, this is, you know, the guidelines for this. Whereas someone who can talk about their own experiences of it and say, this is how I dealt with this, that's more relatable. And people are going to consume that information. It's easier to consume than some sort of scientific, boring study that's given you the realistic percentages of that working. So I can see why people are drawn towards social media. So I think social media has huge potential, and I think influencers have huge potential to help elicit behavior change, but it's just making sure that there is some structure around that, so it's done in a safe way. So that's what I'd like to see as the outcome of this.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just was thinking there. I was laughing. I was like, it's also just how quick you can get onto social media. Like, there, you're jumping on, like, you get on the bus, you're there, or you go on it at 2 a.m. because you can't sleep, and then you're down a rabbit hole, and you've booked the flights to Bali, and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to be so zen after this because such and such done it, and they're looking amazing afterwards, and they're so happy. But you know, there's also a bit of, like, not tough work, but yeah, like, getting to the doctors, you have to book the appointment and all that. Like, but it does, you know, work out. And like what Alan says as well, like the follow-ups, like, there a few weeks ago I got a blood test. Now they're not just going to do the blood test and not tell me about it. They're going to make sure they book a follow-up appointment with me, and if there's anything that needs to be done, then they might have another follow-up again a few months down the track to make sure what interventions they put in then is working. Whereas, yeah, you go onto social media, click, instant, like, satisfaction. But yeah, no, it's good. How would you be, like, able to distinguish between, I suppose, the fads, the trends, and the science-backed approaches? I know we've kind of touched on it there, but like the ice baths, yeah, like a lot of people are like, yeah, this is proven. How are we meant to know what's proven, what's not?
And it's so hard because people can find a study on anything. If I wanted to say that, you know, this cup of tea was, you know, improving my whatever it was, I could probably find a study on it somewhere, because I know, because when I was doing my dissertation, I was finding stuff to agree with my argument. You can do it. So it is really hard, and I think that's confusing for people because they'll hear something, oh, there was a study on that, but there's a big difference on being one study and something that has been, like, you know, there's been multiple studies on it. It's been able to be repeated in different populations at different age groups. They've controlled for numerous variables. So not all studies are equal. Okay, that's the basics of it. Sometimes it is, you know, you can say a study and it's 5 people in it just talking about their experiences, having control for any variables or anything like that. Sometimes studies are funded by, you know, tobacco industry have funded studies which show that tobacco doesn't cause cancer. Like, there's so many, like, nuances within it. So I can totally get why it's completely overwhelming for individuals. And I'm not expecting everyone to go and look up the research study on absolutely everything. But what I would suggest is that, you know, find what you look for. And if it's through social media and that's accessible to you and that's what's going to engage people, amazing. But then do your fact check on that. So, you know, go to your health professional. Even just look on websites like, you know, health websites. So for me, if I'm going on a website that's telling me that this thing is, you know, a scientific study and it's going to do X, Y, Z, and then it has all these affiliated links and adverts popping up from the side, things like that, that for me is a little bit sus. If I'm seeing on a website where nobody's making money from me being on there and reading it, so if it's a charity like Beyond Blue or something like the Black Dog Institute, if it's a university, if it's the gov like .gov.au, all those things, I'm kind of feeling more reassured that this is actually reliable. But if somebody's trying to get you to spend your money to read, like trying to get you to purchase something in the process, that for me is a bit of a sort of warning sign that something might not be right there. But even like even experts can get it wrong. Like, so recently, I don't know if you know Andrew Huberman, you know, the Huberman Lab podcast. Like,
Yes.
he is a Stanford researcher, and I like loved his approach because his podcasts are so long, but he gets like experts, and you know, to me, I like place a lot of value on his opinion. If he says something's good, I'm like, oh, that's good. You know, he's an influencer, but he's well qualified. He's made statements that are not even backed by science that could be incredibly harmful because he has so much weight in his opinion. There was an example where he made a statement about he heard from somebody that sunscreen could bleed into your brain and cross the blood-brain barrier, and it was showing that it was causing issues in the brain. Nobody has been able to find a study to back that claim, including Andrew. Like, and him, someone with that influence, saying something like that, what's that going to do to people using sunscreen, which has been known to save lives? And you have someone like him making this statement, like, that's really, really dangerous. So I think I can empathize with people who are really struggling, because it's hard. It's really, really hard to find that fact from fiction.
Yeah. Alan, any inputs there?
I think it just shines a light on how lonely people can be at times, you know, and how unhappy or they're seeking something outside of themselves, you know, and unfortunately, you know, you go to a GP, they're not going to validate your feelings most of the time, you know, but you know, you fill in an inquiry box online, and all of a sudden they're texting you on Messenger or DMing you, and you know, they're validating your feelings. So I can understand why people go down and do a lot of this stuff, but yeah, it's yeah, I think it's just it just tells you how disconnected we are, you know, and a lot of the time we're just with social media, it's encouraging us to away from face-to-face real life connections. So which probably is what everyone really wants, but it's just it's yeah. Social media is so addictive. I know it is. I can tell you how many times I've downloaded TikTok and then got rid of it, and then downloaded it and got rid of it. It's just like it does me in every time. It's like it knows my brain, and all of a sudden I'm down a rabbit hole, you know. So those kind of things are scary, I suppose. But but as Roisin said, I'm definitely looking for evidence-based you know, programs, and there's lots of programs out there that are evidence-based, you know, and constantly go through reviews and you know, to evaluate it as well, to make sure that they're actually staying up to date. You know, I know for, you know, Roses in the Oceans is one of the charities that auspicious as us, you know, and recently all the older programs, they've gone through an evaluation to see if they're actually up to date. And it's only 3 years ago that they did some of these programs, but that's how fast it's changing, you know. Where I work at the moment, I lived there 3 years ago in a homeless men's shelter, and just some of the stuff that they've changed in there is like it's it's so different, and that's all because they're following evidence-based, whereas before it was stick 25 guys in a room and everything's going to be okay. Some of them are using, some of them aren't, you know, and now it's like everyone gets their own room, everyone has, you know, independence. They're promoting all this healthy eating and all that kind of stuff, whereas before it was just like fill them with food because they're in crisis, you know. Yeah, so it's times are changing, and sometimes, you know, but yeah, we definitely need to read between the lines and wonder what's in it for them, you know, the person that's selling us that, you know, sometimes yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, you're right. And reading between the lines sometimes can be hard, and that's when we miss them red flags. What would be, I think, red flags reminds me of Love Island. What are them red flags that you feel that you just like need to stay away from on social media? Because we all look at them and we're all like, attracted by shiny things? What do you think there?
I was going to go through my Love Island red flags. Stick to the proper one.
Oh yeah.
Go on, Alan.
Yeah, go on ahead. No, I was just thinking. I would love to see. I'd love to see these influencers, because they can be good at times. But like I downloaded TikTok over the weekend, and there was this Irish girl back home, but she started it off by saying, "I'm not a therapist," and I kind of felt that was already. I felt trust in her, you know. But she hasn't always started off like that. So maybe, the social media companies have a bigger role to play in this as well, because why are people getting so many account followers and stuff? And I'd love to see qualifications listed as well. That would be my thing, because I think sometimes I know when I first started struggling, probably about 9-10 years ago, first I got recommended a therapist, and I went and I saw him for a while, and I think it didn't work for me, but like then I kept going to other different ones, and I believe, and this is just my opinion, the only one I actually hit somebody that actually had a degree or had postgraduate studies in counseling and psychology, that I actually got the benefit. Previous there was guys doing certificate for in drug and alcohol and diploma in counseling, and I was just it was just scary, some of the stuff that they were telling me, so I would say seek qualified people, definitely, and don't be afraid to ask what qualifications they have,
Yeah,
you're right.
And if they don't want to tell you, that's a red flag for sure.
Alan, when you said that about like social media responsibility as well, it made me think about, during the pandemic, if someone talked about, if they said the word COVID, there was like a banner automatically added to the screen to be like, where to get information. I think I'd love to see something like that when it comes to people talking about mental health, because mental health is a term that's just flown around, and it is serious because people were dying from the pandemic due to misinformation. And this is just as serious. Suicide is the leading cause of death in young adults in this country. And, it shouldn't be something that people are just like throwing around willy-nilly. This is the trend I'm going to pick up now because people want to find out more about this. Like there should be like guidelines and safely around this from the social media companies. I think they have a massive responsibility. So definitely I think that's a red flag. People given advice beyond their level of qualifications, you can talk about your experience, absolutely. But even red flags for me is how people share it. Like Alan is someone who has lived experience of, mental illness. He knows, and I've met Alan many times outside of this and know exactly how he operates and heard his story many times. He knows how to deliver that story safely. He has done training. He's not a mental health professional, but he's actually done appropriate training around safe use of language, how much is appropriate to share, what is not appropriate. So if I hear people going in talking about medications, stuff like that, I'm automatically getting a bit concerned, because even if they're promoting medications, I think reducing stigma is important, but different people will require different medications. That is a very individual conversation between a health professional. And we're seeing it even now beyond mental health. I'm seeing it, women's health, reproductive health, like all that stuff is really good to see more people talking about that. But again, individuals have different needs and different requirements on that. For me, a big red flag is just this sort of like this language around, people are on one extreme or the other. They're really into like the science and dismissing anything that's not, or people that are into the holistic stuff and dismissing anything that's like, Western medicine or any like health professionals. So like I'm trained in like medicine, or not, sorry, I'm not trained in medicine. I'm trained in that sort of like, Western medicine views of health and everything like that. But I still I don't like when people totally dismiss the traditional holistic stuff either, because for me that's a really important part of my self-care, and I think there is so much we can take from that, but it's whenever you're seeing people that are so polarizing, like it's one or the other, that for me is a red flag, because you can't say that every health professional is going to dismiss you. There's so many health professionals out there. I do all the wellness stuff, the woo-woo. I'm a big fan of it too, even if there's no science behind it. As long as it feels good and doesn't make me feel bad, I'm up for that. But I will also go to the health professionals when I need to. So when that's not enough, whenever my anxiety is so bad that I can't sleep at night, I'm going to go to the health professionals, because I'm not able to do the other stuff without that. So I think for me, it's people that have a balanced view, that are not making overgeneralizing statements that like everybody needs this and don't do that, do this instead. And yeah, speaking above their sort of qualifications, and yet people sharing their stories, so impactful. But there's certain words and language and like details, when I hear that, I'm thinking that could be incredibly traumatizing. And I know that's such a buzzword, triggering, but it actually could be triggering for people who are feeling suicidal. And often there's no lead into that. Sometimes it does come up in events and podcasts and webinars, talking about that. But if it's done in a safe way, people are going to know what's coming up. There will be sort of a safety stage before that to make sure people know what they're going to hear. But sometimes I'm on social media and it's just like, bam, in your face. And I'm like, where did that come out of? I wasn't expecting that conversation to go that way. And there's no follow-up, no like, this is a number for Lifeline, this is a number for something. People are just left there, probably in their beds at 2:00 in the morning, like most of us are when we can't sleep, on social media, and there's no follow-up support. And that for me is really concerning.
Yeah. Wow, all I can think is now, like that social media, like is it just on about like, yeah, there was that COVID little sticker. Even if you're scrolling through, I don't know, Facebook, social media, anything like that, and someone has cut themselves and it's like there's gonna be images of blood. It's a whole blurred screen first.
Yeah.
And then, it's up to your discretion, whether you watch that or not. But like, yeah, like as you said, there's all of those things on like stories or TikToks, like you're just gone, and it's just right in your face. There's no pre-warning, and there's none of that checkup. There's a lot.
I know, and it is everywhere like that. Like, okay, if I want to find out information on this, like the blurred screen, click into it. And another thing that I don't know if I've really stepped back from social media for this reason, because I'm working in this area. And I think for me, sometimes I see just too much. So even, with Mind Yourself, I'm very careful about what I post, because I think I don't want to add to that overwhelm and confuse people even more. But yeah, another thing for me that you've probably noticed as well is that sort of trauma talk, where everything's trauma. And I think people, they're listening to podcasts or hearing this information about like how we all have trauma. And yes, something might have happened in our childhood, which could be traumatic for certain people. But I think then it can diminish, people that have gone through complex trauma, that have gone through incredibly hard experiences. And if they're hearing someone saying, I didn't get picked last in my football team at school, and someone else is, a refugee who's fled a war-torn country, and I just worry that it sometimes might diminish that experience, and the people that really need help might not be heard. And the other sort of language, like everybody's a narcissist, and you need to cancel people out of your lives, and all this here jazz, like, oh, they're toxic, cut out your friends, they're all toxic narcissists. And like, people do that, then they have no friends. Like, nobody's perfect. We're not perfect. We don't need people to cut us out of their life because we make a mistake. Like, I just think these big sweeping statements, like, my psychologist has never told me to do that. That's not something that she's ever been like, they're toxic, get rid of them, quit your job, it's toxic, your boss, like all this. Like, that's great to say, but who's there picking up the pieces when that person's no friends?
Who's paying your rent?
Yeah, who's paying the rent? Exactly.
Oh God, yeah. So I suppose there's a lot. If you were to kind of wrap up a bit, what would you say like mental health wellness looks to you? How do you identify them words? Tricky one, I know.
So Alan, yours might be different from mine.
How's it look for me? I am a believer in routine and discipline as well. So like, absolutely, if people every morning they get up and see sunrise and do all that stuff, absolutely. But I have a morning routine and I have a nighttime routine, and equally as important, you know. So, and I'll be honest, everything can go pear-shaped in the middle of the day, but if I can stick to the nighttime routine and the morning routine, I can get perspective most of the time, you know. I know I'm having a bad day if I come home and my bed isn't made, you know, that I've got up in the morning and maybe I had a bad night's sleep or something was, I had anxiety about going to work or something. But yeah, so for me, it's yeah, definitely routine and discipline. I operate better like that. Yeah, so the other thing I suppose would be, you know, I do have regular count have stuff coming up all the whole time, but I do have regular counseling, and sometimes it can be 4 weeks and sometimes 6 weeks apart. So it's important to I need sounding bases to bounce stuff off. I've got two really good mates that I can bounce stuff off as well. So I don't bounce it off everybody. And I ask for honest feedback. Like I want them to play a straight bat. Friends that tell me everything's okay, or that of course you're right, because that's the last thing I need to hear. You know, so I'm very lucky with that. I've got a couple of good friends like that. But I did have those people before that were, you know, I was doing, yeah, I was traveling really bad, and they would like say, "Don't worry, you're fine. Everyone else is wrong." But um, you know, when you end up in rehab and nobody comes to visit you, you kind of say to yourself, maybe I need to have a look at myself, you know. So yeah, so now I make sure I invest time in my friends as well, that actually support me instead of just trying to invest time in things that might peripherally look good, but actually don't fill that cup that I need to fill, which isn't, you know. So yeah, but that yeah, so I keep it simple enough, really.
Amazing. I like that. I love the routine. Yeah, that's me as well. If there's no routine, good luck to you. If I don't have breakfast by 8 o'clock, no one's going to have a nice day because I know that's me. That's my routine. What about you, Rashin?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's is, I think for me, self-care, well-being, health, everything is just balance. You know, I do think that we can't have, you know, if we have 6 good days a week and one bad day, then we're doing pretty good. You know, there's going to be ups and downs. And I think having unrealistic expectations that every day is going to be perfect is just setting us up for failure, because life is full of ups and downs. Some we can, you know, journal about, process. And for me, that's a really important part of my day is like, you know, exercise is really important. Journaling, like meditation, I'm not great with, but I do try to bring it in now and again.
Yeah.
I get enough sleep is really important for me. I'm quite like, I'd be in bed at like 9:30 and I need a minimum of 8 hours sleep. Sometimes I think I need 9 hours sleep, like I'm like more than average. So all those things, and you know, I do like to try new things. I love a yoga class. I love, you know, anything that sort of makes me feel nice in the moment. Always find that helpful. But again, sometimes that's not enough. And so, and you know, I do have a really good psychologist, who, you know, it's not pretty. It's not someone just, you know, telling me everything's going to be fine and everyone else is wrong. Like Alan says, like they hold you accountable, that sometimes it's you that needs to change, that you're not right in that situation. And you know, has those clear boundaries of expectations as well. So I have that balance. I have the stuff that I can do for myself, which fills up my cup, makes me feel good. Friends are a big part of that as well. My dog is a big part of that too. But then I also like trust that there's health professionals there that do want, the best for me, that can help me with the stuff that's not working with. And you know what, sometimes I had to try around a few psychologists to get someone that fitted. It is a bit like dating. It might not be, you might go in your first session and go, not for me, didn't work, that's fine. Doesn't mean that all health professionals are rubbish. It means that one wasn't a good fit for you, and you have to go and try someone else, because there are people out there that are really well qualified and really do care and keep you safe and give you, the right advice, which isn't always pretty as well. Christine, what about you? You've mentioned routine. What's your self-care? What does your well-being look like?
Oh, a lot of things, depends on the day, doesn't it? I think it's really funny. I've been thinking about it lately, and like my work I talk about a lot of encouraging people to do mental health and well-being and everything. And I like to think of us humans as a car. So a car needs fuel. So like I know I need good food, and if I don't eat good food, good mood. I'm a big believer in that. A car also needs like its wheels pumped, so that might be like your exercise, but it needs oil. That's like, what we drink. And there's some days you can fix your car yourself. You might be able to change a tire, but every so often you need to get like your insurance, and that could be your health insurance, and your health insurance might pay for your counselling and things like that, and I've benefited from that. And then we have to get the rego, we have to get a check-in. So I think I was going to say identify as a car. I don't identify as a car. I'm Christine. But I just think but I think, we just need those, like you can maintain a car yourself, but every so often we know we need to go to the mechanic. And the mechanic is kind of like a counsellor or maybe like a psychologist in ways, because we've all gone to mechanic and we're like, no, I'm not going back to them. And we've gone down the road to another mechanic and we really like them and we'll go back, and we know, they've got good reviews on Google because you're going to like search them, and they mightn't have theories and science-based approach behind the mechanic, but you're doing your research. So that's me. But I need to get up in the gym in the mornings, and I have to have a good breakfast. But we all have our ups and downs. But then some days my car decides it's not going to work, it's going to have a bad day, but I just go into the mechanic and we're all good again.
I'm so glad I asked you that question. That was such a good answer.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
You're welcome. I love analogies. Do we have any questions from anyone? In a quiet one tonight. You might escape, Roisin. So social media seems to be, wow, this is a long question. Social media seems to be an incredible, complex tool. I'm aware that I'm unconsciously absorbing information which may not be explicit in its messaging. How can we apply our own filter and self-talk to what we are seeing in social media so that we can say to ourselves, I don't need to buy that, I don't need to do that, but that's not for me?
If anybody finds out the answer to that, please let me know, because I am equally influenced by what I see online and buying stuff I don't need. My only advice is curate your content. What are you seeing? What are you absorbing? Like, is there people that you trust that have good intentions and are knowledgeable in what they're doing? And maybe there's some people that you need to mute because maybe they are adding to the overwhelm, maybe making you feel like you're not self-caring well enough and you're not up to scratch when it comes to that. So that's what I found helpful, is to just actually go through and have a bit of a cull and be conscious of that. I've really, really reduced my social media use over the last few years, and for me that's been incredibly helpful as well.
Yeah, I think also knowing why you're using social media or sitting on it. Do you know, we all want to buy the latest bit of fashion or anything like that, but Mum always, I think, was like, can you sit on it for 24 hours? Do you know, can you wait? And I think social media is such a quick fix, because back in the day you had to wait till you got to go to Dublin for the day, or whereas now it's so quick
Mm.
online. I think we just need to be patient sometimes.
And
Wait for
it is addictive. You know, there's people talk about digital drugs now. You know, we're still getting that dopamine release in our brain. We left our phone. It's a distraction. I work part-time in sort of group recovery for people overcoming like different, we call them behaviors of concern. Most people are there for alcohol and other drugs, gambling, things like that. But we're actually seeing people now coming because their phone use has become problematic. It's causing serious issues in their relationships, in their jobs, and their studies. And people forget that and they think, oh, it's only a phone, but it's what's it doing inside your brain that's starting to release that. And if you pause and think, am I in a good mood? Is this going to add to my good mood, or is this going to make me feel worse before you go on?
Yeah, for sure.
I
Alan?
think it was last weekend there, 2 people got killed in a car crash, and the guy was watching he was watching some sitcom while he was driving. Do you know, like, so it can be addictive, you know,
Yeah,
and there's outcomes as well, like, you know, but I think probably it's targeted towards women a lot more when selling stuff. I don't buy a whole lot of stuff off social media or anything like that, but messaging or anything like that. But it can make me sometimes fear of missing out stuff. So definitely, you know, that kind of stuff where I think, okay, I'm in on a Saturday night and it's 10 o'clock. Maybe I should be out in Cheers Bar or Scruffy Murphy's and dancing or something. But so, yeah, you do that and then you're like, fuck, why did I do that? You know, I like getting up on a Sunday morning and nothing, you know,
And then
and
if you
actually
go
having the
out
freedom
and
to do stuff.
if you go out on Saturday night to Scruffy Murphy's because you had FOMO, and then you wake up on Sunday morning and everyone else has been up at the beach watching a sunrise, then you get FOMO then too.
Yeah. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, you can't win.
No.
Any other questions? I'll give it another minute.
There's one in the chat there, Christine.
Oh my God, there's a load. I was going to start humming to myself. I won't do that. With the rise of social media, the online world, and working from home, a lot of people have lost their human connection and friendships deterioration. Friendship and connection, I suppose, is so important for our health. How can we find that sense of connection again if we feel we've lost it?
Alan?
Yeah, I think it's just getting out and trying to, like, I'm very lucky where I am. Obviously, we have the safe space in Summer Hill, but in that space alone, there's so many different other groups there. And because I volunteer in that space, I get sucked into going to these things that I probably wouldn't normally do, like sound meditation and yoga and Pilates and bloody stuff at 6. Like, just because you want, when they start stuff up, you want to support them and because they support us, kind of stuff. So like last year so the foundation that runs the Little Big House where we have the safe space, they have done a research study last year on loneliness in predominantly in the flour mills where they're based, but also in the surrounding area. And then they did another one about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And in the last 12 months, the amount of connection that I've had just by volunteering and being part of that community alone, like my questions, and like I didn't know anybody that lived in my block last year. And it's like I'm talking to people all the whole time when I go to the shop now, or go to the coffee shop, or yeah, it's just yeah, for me it's been a game changer. And it didn't happen, like I didn't think it was happening until I actually answered these questions, and you kind of go, oh geez, I do know a lot of people now. I am having a lot of connections. So volunteering is a great way to do it if it is that face-to-face stuff. And yeah, so that's really helped.
I'd second that as well. Like I work from home most of the time. Like sometimes I'm in person, but it is quite isolating. You know, there's days where you might not see anybody. So for me, like I got involved with Alan's safe space, things like that, you know, just getting out of the house and chatting to people, other volunteers, people coming into the pop-up is so helpful for you, and you're improving your well-being by doing it. And it's like you're not having to go into a big group and be like introducing yourself and stuff. It's just just going into a centre and like any sort of venue and sitting down having a chat. I also think there's so many groups now, which is so positive coming out of the pandemic. Like there's the How's the Head on Saturday morning. There's even the ice baths, things like that. As we said, like just even the sense of connection from those things are really impactful for mental health. So if you're using that to make friends, meet people, like whenever I first came to Sydney, it was kind of like if you weren't into the GAA, there was nothing, like, and I was not into the GAA. So I found like there wasn't really much else if you weren't sporty, but there's so many options now for people like that can go out and, you know, the sunrise socials, you literally just sit and watch the sunrise, or Sydney social groups, those groups, like there's most people that go to those are going on their own, like they are people with the same sort of experience as you, they just maybe want to get out of their circle, meet a few people, so just, you know, contacting those, giving them a go, you know, if you don't like it, you don't have to go back, there's no pressure. I also find getting a dog very helpful, but not everyone dogs are expensive, but I just find that like totally like met people, like everyone on my floor has a dog. I don't know the owners' names, but I know the dogs' names, and like that you see them the same time every day, and that just makes me feel a wee bit more connected to my community as well. So even if you don't have a dog, maybe just go to the dog park and play with them.
Yeah. And I think volunteering is a great way to meet new people. It's even simple things of maybe going doing your food shop in person and not online, like or another amazing tool I've seen there recently is the libraries. Because some people have gone very off social media, and a lot of those connection groups are on Instagram, because where I work, we do like community engagement, and we were wanting a lot of people to, you know, connect with some of them groups that are all in the eastern suburbs and like all across Sydney, like. And but a lot of my clientele is like, no, I don't want to be on social media. I'm like, oh crap, how are you going to get to these groups then? But I went to the library in Maroubra and they were like, oh yeah, here's a list. I was like, wow, that's a big list. And there's anything from knitting groups to like walking, like gaming, chess, like everything. There's something there for everyone. But I think it's getting yourself out there. But be it going for a coffee, going for the local library, or looking at social media now and then for those support groups is a good thing. But yeah. Anything else, anyone? Or is that it? We have to get you both ready for your bedtime routines. I wouldn't want to be in trouble. Well, thank you both for joining tonight, and thank you to everyone that joined. As always, these will have been recorded and they will be up on our YouTube and our Spotify account soon. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone, and good night.